Good afternoon. I'm going to do the live reading, final chapter, or the epilogue of Speculum. I'm a little earlier than usual, figured I'd get it out of the way. And I will apologize if my vocals are off a little bit. I was sick the past couple weeks, and that has resulted in a ruptured eardrum, so I'm pretty much deaf on my right side right now. But we will get this underway and then be on with our day. The epilogue, and then there were none. Thick layers of dust coated the trident carved table at the center of the council room. A stale, musty odor lingered in the air, refusing to dissipate. A series of maps were unrolled and sprawled out, covering half of the once polished surface. Weight resting firmly against the solid top, Demetrix stared intently at the inked landmarks, straining his eyes to comprehend their meaning. Where are the battles taking place today? He glanced to his informant. Coalhaven and Arion were hit pretty hard. Many of the women and children were hidden among the fishing vessels. Most of the men were slain, William replied, wearing his lieutenant's badge proudly. The green background was in great contrast to the silver-lined trident. Are the wardens en route? They are, my lord, though they were delayed at Gamora. We lost 2 detachments in the assault, but the order was restored. They reported a day's travel from Fender's Spear, the enemy on the run. Unfortunately, it slipped away. There's no telling where they've gone from there, but we'll find them. Keep looking. There's enough death already. I won't have the people of these lands thinking we can't protect them. I also want a list of the fallen. It's our responsibility to ensure their families are taken care of. It will be done. Oh, on another note, my progress into the Black Lotus is going well. They've used nearly all of the coin I brought them. The war's been hard, forcing them to lay down their weapons and focus on their people. It shouldn't be long before they're back in business. Very good. As per our arrangement, I expect a list of every hit. I don't want a gnat falling without knowing about it. Understood, my lord. William grabbed a rolled piece of parchment and brown leather bag laying beside the maps, lifting the flappy stuff both into his satchel. Demetrix watched the young spy gather his belongings. He would make a good leader one day, though he had much to learn. Travel well, until we meet again. Standing tall, William extended his arm, awaiting his lord. Pressing against his gnarled cane, Demetrix took a step closer and gripped the man's forearm. Feeling the return, he gave a light shake and broke the customary embrace. He watched the man scurry out the door. Gareth marched through, passing the lowly rogue on his way out. Nodding his acknowledgement, he spotted Demetrix standing over the table. His focus returned to the maps. Eric paid me a visit today. Refusing to look away, Demetrix listened to his friend approach. The larger warrior's presence pulled memories of pain to the surface. What did he want? He expressed desire to retain his father's arrangement with us. He wouldn't put it into so many words, but he also has his sights on Krondar. I've got a feeling he's after more than free trade. I wouldn't put it past him. He's impulsive and a bit possessive. I fear it's only a matter of time until he shows his true colors. Gareth agreed, glancing at the maps claiming the young ranger's attention. More attacks? He leaned over, inspecting the marked areas. A heavy sigh escaped. Breaking his focus, Demetrix glanced up, studying his friend's aging face. Unfortunately, we haven't even figured out who they are yet. Every emissary I've sent has been sent back less a body. The messengers are refusing to take the job even at 100 crons. Gareth chuckled, pulling an apple from his pouch. I can't say I blame him. Hard to spend the money when you're dead. He took a rather large bite of the juicy red apple, crunching between words. I can't fault them for not wanting to risk it. In a polite world, we would all abide by the same standard rules. Don't kill the messenger. Don't leave your comrades behind enemy lines. Some people just can't play in polite society. Demetrix wiped a few drops of apple juice from his map. Swallowing prematurely, Gareth locked eyes on the young lord. You got something you want to say? Abandoning the table, Demetrix pressed against his cane, turning to face Gareth. I understand he told you to bring me back, but, well, just forget it. No, you got something to say. Say it. Demetrix sighed, fully aware this conversation wasn't going to end as he'd hoped. I don't understand why you let him stay. He does what he wants. I did what he asked me to do. I can't help that you're pissed about me saving your life. Gareth stated flatly, taking another bite of apple. Forget it. I'd have better luck talking to a tree. Gareth shrugged. Like you said, don't kill the messenger. Demetrix stared long and hard at the warrior. Shaking his head, he forced the subject change. Speaking of messengers, what do you know of a woman? Scenaria. I found an old letter from her in Ravion's things. She's also listed in his will. I remember him mentioning her, but it was brief. Aside from mention in his journal, there's no formal records of her elsewhere. Who? Gareth asked, inspecting the half-eaten apple. Scenaria. From what little he wrote, she's the leader of a group called Moldaran. He was rather vague as to who they are. According to his reports, it looks like he commissioned enough supplies to build a fortress for them. He used the same tactics we did to build this place, though unless he built another Drewslayer keep somewhere in Krondar, there's a lot more to his lordship than he told us. Gareth turned around, looking at the Jarstrahl statue of the barbarian standing behind Ravion's chair. Scanning the others, he looked upon Malachi and trailed over to Crennan, recalling the half-orc's fall. He glanced from his likeness, returning his gaze to Demetrix. There is a keep, just before the mountain pass that leads to the coast. The people there I took for afar. They were the ones that found me after I lost my eye. There was a woman present that day. I never thought to ask, but I could tell he held her in high regard. That settles it. I need to take a trip to Krondar. If he sheltered them, he had good reason. I need to learn what that reason was if I'm to do the same. Gareth licked juice from his fingers. I'd accompany him, but I have other matters to attend. Drinking and whoring aren't matters. They are if you're retired. Demetrix shuffled the maps and parchment cluttered about the table, his aggravation growing in the chaos. There was so much to do and little time to do it. The world had changed so much in his absence, yet in many ways it remained the same. Finding the document he'd been searching for, he pulled the forms from the pile, quickly rolling and shoving them into his pack. Krondar was a long journey, and he didn't intend on forgetting anything. A knock at the council room door roused him. Enter. One of the guards stepped through the cracked barrier, snapping to attention. High Lord Demetrix, another emissary from Mount Thoron has arrived, requesting your attention. Should I send him up? Demetrix closed his eyes, sighing annoyance. Returning his attention to the guard, he pressed against his cane and hobbled toward him. I have more important matters to tend than some petty grievance from a land that wants nothing to do with us. Shaking his head, he continued, Show him to the refectory. I'm going to end this once and for all. The guard turned and disappeared around the corner. Slowly, Demetrix made his way to the balcony and took position to see the man approach. The emissary strutted along the manicured pathway through the bailey. Head held high, he refused to give the slightest acknowledgement to anyone that didn't bear noble status. His personal escort marched a few steps ahead, while the guard Demetrix had spoken with trailed slightly behind. The escort stepped to the side, taking position inside the archway leading into the dining hall. The keep guard moved to the other side, allowing the man to enter alone. Stepping from the balcony, bracing himself against the banister, Demetrix guided himself down the winding staircase, studying the puffed courier. The man entered the refectory and took a seat, ignoring the few servants here and there. This arrogant pup was in the wrong place for such a superior attitude. That was one of the things he wouldn't tolerate from anybody. In Marbane, the poorest peasant was shown equal respect as the lord. It wouldn't change this day. Nearing the bottom step, Demetrix spoke, letting his voice carry over the near-empty hall. What's your name, emissary? The man jumped, hearing the High Lord's voice. Spinning around, he waited for the crippled man to reach the bottom step. Impatiently awaiting his approach, he gave an exaggerated bow, more a show of protocol than respect. Leander Mules, my lord. Take a seat, Leander. I don't have much time, but since you've made such a long journey, I'll hear your words. He suppressed a smile, mocking the man's length of travel. Mount Thurin was perched in the mountains to the west of Marbane. It wasn't a difficult nor a long trip, being able to reach within a day. One of the servants rushed into the room and laid a golden platter on the long oaken tabletop. It was covered in sliced meats and dried bread, layered out to display each piece while protecting the one beneath it. She bowed respectfully to the emissary. "May I take your cloak and cover, sir?" Another servant placed a silver goblet in front of the man, pouring a golden liquid into the cup. The man shed his layers, refusing to lower himself by speaking to her. The two disappeared as quickly as possible, watching for their services to be needed again. Demetrix pulled one of the chairs and took a seat, facing the messenger. "You must be perched from your trip down the mountain. Have your fill. We can talk afterward." Adjusting his wooden walking stick against his leg, he felt the pressure relieve slightly. Interlocking his fingers, he rested them against his stomach and leaned back, impatiently watching the man stuff his face. The emissary gorged, leaving little room for anything else. A loud belch escaped his mouth, and he pushed the platter away. The woman rushed over, claiming it. "Would you like more, sir?" Leander rubbed his belly, leaning against the high-backed chair. "No, my appetite is sated. I would, however, like another glass of mead." He held the goblet up, spilling a small amount of the syrupy liquid on her dress. She lifted the pitcher, lying not but a few feet away, and filled the cup. Laying it to rest once again, she turned and disappeared. Demetrix stared his discontent at the man, silently containing his rage. This disrespectful, glorified messenger would only lower himself to talk to the hired help if he needed something, and was rude about it at that. He waited for the man to take another long draw of the freshly filled goblet. Timing it, he spoke, forcing the man to answer with his mouth filled, lest show disrespect to his superior. "Now that your appetite is sated, what is it your queen has ordered you to say?" Leander searched for the words thrown off by the invitation to dine. Buying as much time to swallow as he could, he cleared his throat. "My lord, I was sent to inform you." He retrieved a worn parchment from his pouch and unrolled it. Reading the missive aloud, he kept his eyes on the scribed words. "Demetrix Santel, with Lord Ravion's absence and your right to succession granting you entitlement to the lands of Krondar, you are hereby in violation of Treaty 727, signed by the Coalition of Countries, stating that no one man may assume lordship over multiple lands without the previous consent of the COC. In light of this violation, I offer you compromise." Leander paused and swallowed hard before continuing. "Surrender the lands known as Marbane to Mount Thurin, or we will unleash our newest weapon against your city. If you accept these terms, you and your men will be allowed to live in peace without change to your lifestyle. You will fly the banner of Mount Thurin and submit to Her Majesty's rule. Sincerely, Curious Filaria, Royal Consort to the Queen Calip Fiara." Demetrix sat quietly, refusing to show any gesture that would give away his thoughts. Swallowing his anger, he carefully considered his options. Staring blankly at the messenger, refusing to blink, he watched the man shift uncomfortably in his seat. Decided on his response, he calmly spoke, forcing his emotion into the pit of his stomach. "Your queen oversteps her bounds." "My lord, I have everything in order. All the details are with me, if you'd like to view the treaty for yourself." Pulling himself upright in the chair, Demetrix raised a finger, silencing the man. "I know what the treaty says. My name is written upon the parchment, same as the other lords. There's one small factor in which your queen has overlooked. Despite my title of High Lord, which by definition states that I rule multiple lands, if she'd bothered to do any research past her greed, she'd note that I'm not the sole benefactor to the deed of Marbane, nor Krondar." Rising from his seat, he forced the pain away, hearing his cane clap loudly against the slate floor. He felt as if the unhealed bones inside his leg were grinding against one another, threatening to tear themselves apart. It took every ounce of resolve to put his full weight on the injured leg, and pretend as if he weren't filled with crippling pain. Refusing to show any form of weakness, Demetrix stepped toward the man, towering over him. "Now, yes, I rule Marbane as a glorified steward, an appointed position by the council, but I do not own her lands. The Order of the Trident does, and that takes majority rule of the council to determine any decisions. Of the 5 members, only 2 remain. Without full-on war resulting in the complete decimation of my people, you're out of luck until the other seats have been filled. As for Krondar, Ravion's will did not grant me lordship over the barbarian peoples. That honor went to one Cennaria Moldaran of Krondar. It falls to me to aid her in this duty. So with respect, I suggest you get your ass back up the mountain and give your queen the message from me. Dmitrix leaned in close, letting the pain fuel his rage. If she ever thinks of sending a single man to my walls over this bullshit again, I'm going to personally march up to that cesspit you call home and put a leash on the bitch myself. His anger boiled like a poison, trying to escape his body. Unable to stop himself, he kicked the chair out from under the emissary, feeling the bones snap under the exerted pressure. Get the fuck out of my lands. Leander crashed to the floor, unsure what had just happened. He jumped up, looking at his bean-stained tunic. Visibly shaken, he dusted himself off and ran for the courtyard. Dmitrix held strong, watching the arrogant prick scurry for the exit. Seeing him pass out of sight, he crashed to the floor, letting his wounds overcome him. Another section change. Staring at the missive, the path revealed itself as the words described. The moonlight revealed a perfect trail through the rocky outcropping. Carefully making his way down, Dmitrix felt the molded rawhide around his leg. It rubbed his sensitive skin, chafing terribly. Ignoring the discomfort, he pressed on, pushing against his cane and selecting where he was going to step. In no time he reached the bottom, lost in the sight of the massive keep before him. How he hadn't seen it from the high-rise was a mystery, but not one worthy of his attention. Approaching the outer wall, he froze, lost in the sight of the blue aura surrounding the man. What? How do you exist? He knew they weren't Trudal or I, at least not in the manner that he knew of them. But a rose by any other name remained a rose. This one simply had been taken apart and put back together. From the look on the guard's face, he had no idea what he was talking about. High Lord Dmitrix? That I am. Lady Cennaria is expecting you. This way, please. The guard turned and stepped through the sealed barricade. Dmitrix followed, too lost in the discovery of this nest to pay any attention to the structures around him. How many were there? He felt like a child receiving presents for the first time. In this case, it was the restoration of his race. Ravion had done it. He had found them. Unable to contain his smile, he followed the man through the restored archway and into the courtyard. They were everywhere. Some trained with swords, while others expressed themselves in art and music, learning their individuality. It was a wondrous sight to behold. Without realizing it, he was already inside the keep. Making his way through the winding corridors, he was led to an upstairs reception hall. Taking a place at the end of the long table, he paused, awaiting his announcement. A woman stood, looking out the window at the far side of the room, her back to the door. High Lord Dmitrix Santel to see you, my lady. The guard bowed and left the room. Cennaria turned, looking upon the young lord. He was several inches shorter than Ravion and had dark brown hair opposed to the red she had longed to see once again. But his features held similar appearance. He, however, wasn't Ravion. You said you have news of Ravion? Cennaria prompted, gesturing toward one of the chairs. She walked nearly halfway across the room and took a seat not far from the one she'd suggested. He didn't know how long he had been staring, but judging from her expression, he was making a fool of himself. Giving a slight bow, Dmitrix collected his thoughts and took a seat. Reaching into his satchel, he retrieved the sealed scroll and slid it across the table to her. I thank you for seeing me, but I must say this place is extremely difficult to locate without guidance. Well done on that. Shifting to formal business, he took a deep breath and gestured to the sealed scroll. As you already know, I'm Ravion's brother. I regret to inform you that we underwent a trip not long ago. Sadly, this was a trip Ravion did not return from. He could see the pain in her eyes. She sat in silence, burying her feelings. Is he dead? She adjusted the wooden chair, wishing she could release the pain building inside her. It was the worst pain she could imagine, yet there was hope. He wasn't when I last saw him, but I can't say with certainty if that's changed. As far as I've been told, he made the choice to stay behind. A spark ignited behind her eyes. Cennaria remained silent, listening to what he had to say. If Ravion If Ravion chose to stay, there was good reason. She would see him again, even if she had to go to him. Allowing her a moment to process, Demetrix continued. In addition to this news, I wish to inform you that you were named in his will. It's a little strange exercising the man's last testament before his passing, but in this case it's unlikely he'll be returning. He waited for her to unroll the scroll. What you hold there is the deed to the lands of Krondar. He left its lordship to your care. I'll assist you as best I can, but my time will also be needed in my own lands. Should you require anything, please send a message to Marbane. I'll answer when duty permits. She looked up from the document, studying his face. We just met. Why would you assist me? Caught off guard by the question, Demetrix selected the best response. My lady, Ravion was my brother. I don't know how you two found each other, but in going through his things, I've learned that he was extremely fond of you. That piqued my interest. For that reason alone, I offered my support. But when I got here and saw your people, had I not felt obligated beforehand, I would now. Yeah, thanks for being here, Marcus. She raised an eyebrow at the statement. I don't know what Ravion told you about our kind, but I don't wish to confuse you in any way, but your people seem to have a strong connection to mine. Ravion must have seen this, which I'm sure had some part in his motives. Ravion aside, this explains my motives. If your people are indeed related to mine, and I believe they are, I will do all I can to aid you. Ravion pushed himself up, steadying the wooden supports. My lady Cenaria, it has been a privilege meeting you. I hope to share words again in the near future, but I'm afraid I must return to Marbane. The attacks have moved fairly close to these parts. I'd prefer to reach Shadgoal before nightfall. Taking his own weight, he gave a final bow and turned, leaving her to her affairs. Section change. A gentle breeze blew across the forested courtyard. The clash of swords echoed through the trees, calm and precise. Demetrix limped his way down the line of soldiers, looking upon their seemingly young faces. In truth, this didn't appear much different. In truth, his didn't appear much different, but he was beginning to feel his years. Stopping in front of a young girl, narrowly old enough to apply for the border wardens, he scanned her from head to toe, studying the blue glow radiating from her. What's your name, recruit? Rael Santel, sir. The young scout stood amidst the row of eager warriors, each one ready to prove their worth. She wore a brown leather skirt and matching armor. Twin swords hung from her sides, and a fiery red hair ran down her back. Santel, huh? What brings you to Marbane, Rael? Demetrix waited for her response, as he had the previous soldiers. This one was different. She claimed name. If she truly was who she claimed to be, there was certainly a place for her, but he had to be sure. I aim to better myself in the ways of battle, in hopes of ascending the ranks so that I might fight by my uncle's side. And what is your uncle's name, recruit? She looked up at the crippled archer, unsure if she should answer correctly. Ravion, sir. The assurance in her voice carried through the trees. Very good, Rael. Turning, he stopped in front of the next recruit, staring him in the eyes, and began again. What is your name, recruit? Perrin, sir. What's your business here, Perrin? I hear this is the place to train in the ways of magic since the tower left, sir. You've come to the right place. Do you think you've got what it takes to be among the elite magi we have to offer? I do, sir. Very good, Perrin. We'll make a battle mage out of you yet. Demetrix went down the line, learning all of the new recruits' names and faces. It helped to know the man he led. Their deaths didn't sting as bad when he could put a face with the list. Finishing his introductions, he opened a wooden chest and pulled out a handful of black sigils. Each one had a white trident carved in the center. Tossing one to each of the recruits, he closed the chest and placed it in front of them. These mark you as initiate in the Order of the Trident. Have it with you at all times. With improvement, you'll receive new badges and benefits. Let it be a beacon for you in times of need. Your brothers and sisters will always be there for you, just as you'll always be there for them. Wear it with pride. You are dismissed. The group broke, disappearing into their various duties. Rael, might I have a moment with you? He hobbled to the young scout. What do you know of Ravion? Sadly not much. I met him briefly before he had to go on some important mission. I was in Krondar not long ago when Not long ago, they hadn't heard from him. Has he returned? Sadly, no. And he's not expected to. I ask you this. I've known Ravion for a while now. He's never mentioned anything about siblings. How do you tie in? My mother told me about him before she died. She said she thought he was dead. They got separated when they were little. Reputation of the Drew Slayers traveled to my homeland in West Corinthia. My mother suspected it was Ravion, but she couldn't be sure. After she died, I tried to find my father and sister. A merchant told me he might have taken position at the tower. But it was gone before I arrived. Then I learned of this was the birthplace of the Drew Slayers and had to find out for myself. May I ask you a question? She continued, refusing to wait for a response. How do you tie in? I know your dollar eye. I can see your glow. Aside from you and Ravion, I haven't seen any others. It's a long story full of many complications. Short form, my name is Demetrix Santel, son to Mark Hill, and brother to Ravion and Alexandra. This would make me your uncle as well. Walk with me. I'll answer any questions you may have. As far as your question, Marcus, I have a couple issues going on. About half-deaf, so everything sounds weird. And I'm not the strongest reader when I'm having to do it aloud. So, section change. Demetrix stared out the window overlooking the Bailey, the city beyond. He watched the new recruits training against the dummies, recalling simpler times. Lost in thought, he didn't hear the door open. You spend an awful lot of time looking out that window. Hearing Gareth's voice, he turned, finding the man sitting against the edge of the table. It helps me think. I look down at the men and women striving to be better than they were the day before. I see hope for the future, hope that we've made a difference. I see their faces, free of mar and regret from the years of battle waging heavily on the soul. I didn't come here to listen to you unburden yourself. I came to give you a lead on your raiders. Gareth pulled a dagger from his hip and began scraping dirt beneath his fingernails. Demetrix chuckled at the warrior's abruptness. I enjoy these little chats. Won't you take a seat and tell me about it? Forcing sarcasm into his words, he limped into his chair. I've already got one. Gareth smiled, motioning at the table beneath him. Waiting a moment, ensuring his point was made, he stood and marched to his own seat. I can't prove it yet, but Eric has some hand in the attacks. I stopped by the pub in Shadwell last night. And by stop by, you mean you stayed all night. I'm telling the damn story. Anyway, I was making my way upstairs with a fine young lass when I passed by the back room. I saw Eric and a second. What's his name? Jim. Gareth raised a finger denoting remembrance. They were dressed in all black and talking to a guy about a special dagger. I couldn't stay real long for fear of drawing too much attention. And by that, you mean you were distracted by the girl you previously mentioned. Demetrix suppressed a chuckle, seeing the irritation build on his friend. Do you want to hear what I saw or not? By all means. You sure? 'Cause I can keep it to myself. I don't have to wait, or I'd hate to waste your time. Sighing heavily, Demetrix waved him on, all humor lost. Please proceed. Where was I? Oh yeah. I didn't want to draw too much attention, but I know a deal when I see one. I did manage to see a drawing of the dagger before my entertainment drugged me off. I knew I'd seen it somewhere before, so I stopped by the vaults before coming here. Gareth reached beneath his cloak and drew the thin, wavy dagger of black and purple. He extended it towards the ranger. Releasing it, he set it in Demetrix's palm. Demetrix took the kriss, examining the runes running along the blade. You think this is what they're after? I do. And if they're willing to kill their own citizens for it, something tells me they'd stop at nothing to get it. I'd hate to see the aftermath if they learned we have it. I wonder what's so important about it. Gareth watched in earnest. Ravion killed the Night King with it. I don't know its history before he had it. Ravion said to lock it away and keep it safe. On his word alone, we can't risk Eric finding it. I remember small pieces of Leviathan talking about the dagger. He would never say much, but I could tell he was afraid of it. I'll send for Perrin. He's quickly making progress. Maybe he can tell us a little more. I'd express caution. We don't know what this thing does or why he wants it so bad. Best Best I've been able to find was a report of a dagger that can grant unlimited power to its wielder. Gareth stood, reclaiming the mysterious blade. I'll return it to the vaults until we have more answers. A blinding light exploded, illuminating the room. Demetrix shielded his eyes, turning to see the source floating above the council chamber. Gareth, are you seeing this? Aye. Ravion? Grabbing his cane, Demetrix stood, stepping closer to the glowing silhouette. Ravion, he asked again. There was no mistaking the face staring back at him, though it seemed darker than he recalled. A light grew wider, forcing them to look away. It wrapped around, surrounding them in warm embrace. They couldn't see anything, it was so bright. Hearing the commotion on the other side of the council room door, William approached. It was alarming, but it wasn't alarming, but it didn't belong. Slowly reaching out, he pressed the door open, peeking into the seemingly abandoned chamber. My lord, are you here? I just received word the Black Lotus were offered a sum of 2,000 gold in your head. A loud clap echoed out. William stepped into the room. He saw the wooden cane lying on the floor. High Lord Demetrix. Making his way to the table, keeping his eyes open for any sign he expected the gnarled wood. The purple sheen caught his attention. Abandoning the worn cane, he secured the wicked dagger lying beside it. William, claim me. Hearing the whispers in his eyes, he felt a jolt shoot through his head. Turning toward the door, dagger in fist, a purple glaze reflected in his eyes. And that is the end of the epilogue. The story continues in Exodus, but we are going to take a little bit of time off on these before I get into that book. We have VisionCon next weekend, so I hope to see many of you there. And as I mentioned earlier, anybody who either pre-orders or does the regular order of shields when it comes out will receive a little novelty trinket that I've procured for a number of people. All you need is show me confirmation on it anytime between now and the end of the convention, and you'll get your little gift. But anyway, that's about all I've got. Let's see. Yes, sir, it is. But anyway, I'm going to get off here and try to get some work done. So this being death in one of my ears is kind of screwing things up. Makes everything sound weird. But anyway, we will talk to you later, and I hope to see you guys next weekend. Bye.